Yeah. I love villains. Villains are my favorite. Every story I've ever enjoyed has had a villain that I quite literally appreciate more than the main character at times. I want to write great villains. And if you're here, so do you. So let's dive right into this. Today we are strictly talking about villains, antagonists. I will be referring to antagonists as villains because I have been trained by freaking superhero media to say villains, but I know I mean antagonists, and antagonists applies to, you know what, villains. So we're talking about antagonists slash villains today. I just like saying villains. Villains makes me feel like a little creepy crawly, googly moogly. So we're saying villains. I know dang well that villains also fall underneath the story writing term for antagonists. So a villain is really important for your story because a villain isn't just someone your main character fights. A villain is something that changes the story itself. Villains don't just exist in your story, they reshape it. And a weak villain lowers the stakes, makes conflict feel easy, and makes your MC look stronger than they actually are. But a great villain, they force your story to evolve. They pressure your main character. They challenge the world itself, and they create tension that demands growth. A good villain has a goal, opposes the MC, and creates conflict. A great villain changes how the story itself feels. They linger in scenes that they are not even in anymore. They shift tone, they make the audience question things, and sometimes they make the audience agree with them. In plain and simple terms, technically every villain or antagonist is the main character of their own story. So they have a belief, a wound, and a goal. And some of them don't even have a wound. Some of them don't even have a belief, a wound, or a goal. They just think they think they were born to rule the world. And you know what? Those villains can be written very well, and sometimes they're written poorly, and they make me upset. Because why did you go outside and set that lady on fire? Just because you could? Bro, shut up. Get out. Bye. Tomato, tomato, tomato. But yes, I am not anti-evil for evil's sake. I know this video might say otherwise, but I think it's bad when it's written poorly. And I explained that in the video, and everyone in the comments insisted to tell me their example for a good evil for evil's sake villain. And of course, there are amazing examples out there. I'm just saying from the ones that I viewed, I like these guys. And sometimes I cannot get behind Sukuna apologists. But the thing is, I actually really like Sukuna. I actually really love his character. I love what he represents. I love the nonsensical, I'm stronger than everyone, therefore I just must be mentality he has. But the way he was taken down in the story just makes me angry, okay? I'm more so mad about how Gege ended it, okay? I think I've directed my Sukuna hate at Sukuna. And it's not even that I hate Sukuna. I don't even dislike the way he's written. I just think that Mahito's version of evils for evil's sake is more appealing to me. I think it's scarier. I find him more terrifying. Therefore, I can respect him more as a villain. Sukuna and Mahito are even on the level of like cool, well-written villain, but fear meter, Mahito's way higher. And I don't think I clarified that enough in that video. So if you watched that video and you disagreed with me and you came to the comments of that video be like, you're an idiot, I don't actually feel the strongest about hating on Sukuna, and I really like him actually. I like him a lot. I love his voice. What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty good man. Ah! But I do not excuse his behavior because he's attractive. He needed to be stopped, and thank God above that he was. Didn't personally like how it was done, but the job was done. So, you know, hands up, clapping, praying, dancing, skipping, and hopping. That's another thing I want to touch on maybe in another video. Just because I don't specifically like how something was done doesn't mean it is inherently bad. It just personally wasn't something I preferred. And I think that people don't know how to differentiate quote unquote bad writing from writing that they don't like. In that case, anything you don't like is bad. So, you know what? I don't like green beans, so they're bad. When green beans have great benefits, you know, like it doesn't inherently make it terrible. And I think that internet commentary kind of just, it just upsets me a little bit because it's like you just discredited somebody's actual published, well-written work because you didn't like the ending. And you know what? Why don't you go and rewrite the ending? Rewrite the ending and show Gege and be like, you know what? I didn't like the way JJK ended, so this is how I wanted you to end it actually. And see how many F's he gives. little tangent over. It's just sometimes like internet discourse is just so like one-sided on a single opinion and less about actual fundamental writing problems or fundamental writing issues and more about my personal opinion. If you're going to give your personal opinion, please preface by saying, you know what, this is my opinion, but X, Y, and Z. Because when you just say things outright, you make it seem like a fact, and it's not a fact, actually. It's just your personal opinion. It's just my opinion! But yeah, tangent over, back to the villains, gang. So a villain's belief, wound, and goal build their logic. They might want to control because they lost control. They might want peace because chaos destroyed them. And they might want power because they're terrified of being powerless again. If you understand why they think they're right, you can make them dangerous. So I have watched a lot of TV, read a lot of books and comics, and I have observed a lot of movies. And over time, I have kind of compiled this list of my favorite and the ones I've seen the most of villain archetypes. And for each one, we are going to be looking at how they function, why they work, and how you can use them effectively in your own story. I believe this one is called The Force of Nature. I call it Zippity Zoodaze because at the end of the day, this guy's just doing whatever the freak they want. Oftentimes, they are either a megalomaniac or an egomaniac. This type of villain doesn't just think they're above everything else, they operate like that is a fact. Their ego isn't loud for the sake of being loud, it's rooted in a belief that they are the strongest, the smartest, and the most important force in the room. And because of that, everything they do is justified. They don't see people as equals, they see them as obstacles, tools, or collateral. And the megalomania comes from scale. They don't just want control over people or a place, they want control over systems, over worlds, over reality itself, if they can reach that far. What makes them so effective is that they don't feel like they can be reasoned with. You cannot debate them. You cannot emotionally reach them. You can either survive or you can get crushed by them. And to write them well, lean into dominance and inevitability. Every line of dialogue should feel like a declaration. Every action should feel like a step forward that no one else can stop. They do not hesitate, they don't ask, they don't wait. And when it comes to taking them down, it should never feel like a fair fight, because it isn't. The only way to beat a force of nature is to find the one thing they refuse to see. Their blind spot, their flaw, the crack in their god complex. The way you take this character down is the same way you build them up. Absolute power. Or the power of friendship or something, like just something stupid, like, oh, we all banded together and the power of friendship magically saved everything that could ever have been saved, and this absolute demonic freaking force that was literally destroying us all was demolished by the power of friendship. If it doesn't make sense in your world's lore, the power of friendship really is going to start pissing people off, and you know what, it's pissing me off, and I am a very positive power of friendship girl. I grew up watching My Little Pony, both generations, so like, when it gets to a point where the power of friendship is doing a little bit too much, you start to blink and wonder, is that all you could think of? Or does the power of friendship actually work in this situation? Number 2, the Mad King. The world will be mine personified. This villain isn't just chasing power. They believe the world belongs to them. There's a level of entitlement here that goes beyond arrogance. It's not just I want to rule. It's I am the only one who should rule. They look at the world and see disorder, weakness, corruption, and instead of navigating it, they decide to own it, to reshape it, to dominate it. Unlike the force of nature, who is the storm, the Mad King wants to control the storm. Their mindset is deeply tied to control and legacy. They want to be remembered. They want their rule to mean something. They want to build something that proves they were right all along. To write them well, give them unshakable conviction. They shouldn't sound unsure. They shouldn't feel like they're guessing. Even when they're wrong, they should sound absolute. They should sound completely right. That's what makes them compelling. That's what makes the audience pause and think, wait, if they had power, would things actually be better? And that's what's dangerous, because their downfall always comes from that same belief. Their need to control becomes their weakness. Their inability to see themselves as flawed becomes that very thing that breaks them. Strip them of control, and you strip them of identity. And once that happens, they fall, and they fall quite hard. Number 3, the sheep, aka the hidden betrayer. This guy you never saw coming, but the pieces were always right there, just out of reach, scattered throughout the story at pivotal moments that overshadowed obviously sus behavior. So unless you are a hypervigilant freak with too much time to analyze and watch TV, you truly never saw the betrayal coming. This archetype thrives on misdirection. They don't stand out, they blend in, they feel safe, and that's exactly why they work. The story gives you bigger threats to focus on, louder personalities, and more obvious danger. Meanwhile, the sheep is quietly existing in the background, watching, learning, waiting. The betrayal doesn't feel shocking because it's random. It feels shocking because suddenly everything makes sense. To write this well, you need restraint. Restraint, restraint, restraint. Every suspicious movement, every moment that they feel a little bit too, girl, what's going on here, needs to be explainable until it isn't. And when the reveal hits, it shouldn't just change the plot, it should reframe the entire story. Number 4, the businessman. Cold, calculated, detached, evil, but effective. This villain isn't driven by chaos, anger, or emotion. They are driven by results. They treat people like assets, like numbers, like pieces in a system they believe they understand better than anyone else. They don't rage, they don't lash out, they don't lose control, they optimize. And when they start to show those emotions, that is when you should feel fear. That is when you should be afraid, because up until this point in the story, they've been calm, composed, and everything has gone perfectly to plan. If the emotion is peeking through, the character is breaking, and they are on their horizon for failure. And that's what makes them dangerous, actually, because they don't see what they're doing as wrong. They see it as necessary. To write them well, focus on logic and systems. Their dialogue should feel sharp, clean, intentional. You waste no words, no emotional overflow, and when they fall, it's because something entered their system that they could not control. Something unpredictable, something human. Break the system, and you break them. The humanitarian, aka the nihilist. This villain often started off with a very valid desire to help others, but once absolute power becomes the goal, their pure intentions become supplementary to their desire to correct everything deemed problematic in their eyes. In the same light as the Mad King, the humanitarian wants ultimate power, but to simply relinquish it once the job is complete. Oftentimes, this villain will dream of a utopia where all things are just fair and fun and special in the world. And once they realize accomplishing that goal is impossible, they take matters into their own hands through dictatorship, through enslavement, or more often, pure eradication, ending their desire to do good with the destruction of what they set out to protect originally. This archetype hits because at one point they were right. The audience understands them, maybe even agrees with them, and that's what makes their fall tragic. This one I like to call the worm. It is very hyper-specific, I've noticed, to like anime and comics, manga, even Western comics as well. This character, this villain is pitiful. They doubt and they grovel, while also secretly harboring some form of self-sustained ego. They're usually attached to a larger, greater, and actually threatening villain, and this relationship can either build or squander their self-worth. Oftentimes, they outgrow their superior and even turn against them, and when that happens, they become the one who pities others as much as they once pitied themselves. This archetype is about progression. They don't start out powerful, they become something dangerous over time. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you see it, this archetype is actually very capable of redemption, but sometimes they would rather spit at God's feet for such a terrible life than accept a second chance. The scientist. They could be mad and know it, or mad and believe they are the only person sane enough to get the job done. Regardless, they are gifted, and very, very aware of that. This villain doesn't just value intelligence, they worship it. They see people as variables and experiments and data to collect. The result matters more than the cost, and they are driven by obsession, not emotion, not chaos, and when they are driven by emotion or chaos, they are quicker to crumble and to fall. Knowledge is their absolute power, so focusing on emotions and focusing on worries and things like that make them weaker. But the need to know and to prove and to reach something that no one else can, that is what makes them terrifying. Because when they fall, it's catastrophic. It is collateral damage. And when they succeed, it's often worse. Alrighty, on to section 3, pairing your villain with your MC, or with your story in general. How do you pick the right villain for your story? Ask yourselves these questions. Do you want them to be a foil of the main character? Do you want them inside your MC's inner circle? Do you want them to grow alongside your MC, like some kind of strange symbiosis? In the end, your villain should do 2 of these 3 things, and the third should be resolved by the end. The 3 rules that I've set up for myself that genuinely help me understand my villains and write them better within the story. Let's go over them. Number 1, your villain should challenge your MC's ideals in belief or in action. Number 2, your villain should outshine your MC in something, be stronger, be faster, smarter, more composed. And 3, they should conquer death, figuratively. A great villain doesn't disappear. They live on through impact, through memory, through genuine change within the story. Even if the world forgets them, the main character does not. The same way we remember positive forces within the story, how great main characters were, how amazing their goals were, how good it was to feel their dreams come true, that does not come without remembrance of the greatness that the villain was, especially if the villain dies. They conquer death, and when that happens, you feel like a loss still regardless. I think the best example I have for this that's freshest in my mind right now is the way that My Hero ended. I think that My Hero's ending was actually peak. I loved it. I feel like it just captured the way that collateral damage really doesn't go away. Like, you never stop remembering those exact moments that happened in your life that keep you from celebrating fully. And a great villain will keep the main character from celebrating fully. No matter how positive they are, the villain and their memory will always return. It'll just come back. Like freaking the Akira meme. Alrighty, so let's talk about my main villain for the first season of my story. I call it season, but it's not like animated or anything. It technically counts as a season. But anyway, this is Alistair Sinclair. I will leave information about him up on the screen so that you can divulge and digest and dive into the character as a whole. I feel like he falls more underneath the archetype of the scientist and also just the narcissist in general. I didn't really talk about that one as much because it can kind of fit into either one of the archetypes. Your villain can wind up being a narcissist. They don't have to be, but Alistair definitely is. He has a desire, and his desire is that he wants to become pure and stable because he wasn't born that way. He is physically unstable, and his ability allows him to take control of beings live or dead and kind of absorb their energy and keep himself sustained. But living minds fight back, so he experiments in order to turn off the brain so that he can harbor and like nestle himself inside that body without hearing the person's mind still be alive while he's in there. So he definitely impacts my main character very much because Demi was his next vessel and he wanted him to be his final vessel. And he does these things, these wicked, awful things, and they impact him because when he meets Demi, he doesn't attack him. He's not even threatening. He's a very non-threatening man. He just studies him, and he coerces him to become his therapist and everything. So he learns Demi's personality, his abilities, his family trauma, like his everything. He just figures everything out about him, and he builds trust so that he can break him better later. So Alistair's dialogue is very calm and detached and controlled, and he speaks like he's already won. But in some disgustingly twisted way, he's quite warm with the way that he addresses others. And I wanted that to read properly through the way that he communicates with Demi and other major characters in the story. So I took a lot of what makes a good teacher. I took a lot of what makes a good therapist in concept, and I took a lot of what makes a good caretaker, and I just twisted that into a very clinical and kind of like just perverse version of like what a good doctor would be, what a good caretaker would be. And I switched it all on its head, and I gave it more so a personal interest. What would a doctor do if they were more so interested in X, Y, or Z? So for Alistair, it's what would a doctor or scientist do if they wanted to personally improve on themselves. And that really just affects the way that he interacts with all the characters. It affects how he views himself. It affects how he views Demi, how he like prides himself on Demi being his best work. It's just like a perverse version of like a project, and he doesn't view Demi like as a person. Almost he views him as a tool to be used and then something to be worn. Like, you will be hollowed out, all of the feelings you have, everything, it'll be gone, and I will be the only thing that remains. And he believes he's giving Demi comfort by saying these things because of all the horrible things Demi's experienced in his life. And that's kind of what makes him just seem even more twisted, is because like, what do you mean you're giving him rest? You caused most of the issue. It's you. You're the problem. But yeah, really what it comes down to when you want to write your villain, especially if they're supposed to be an antithesis of something, really hone in on those beginning traits. Like, if you want someone to represent themselves as good, but on the inside they're very wicked, they have to be able to play up the good part very well. So that makes them charismatic, or that makes them confident, you know? Really writing your villain or your antagonist really comes down to personability or lack of personability. If they're a personable person, you can really work off of that, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of other smaller bits that go into it, and I'll link a lot of the other videos that I typically watch when I'm writing villains, or the kinds of concepts I consider when I'm writing villains. I'll put a lot of resources in the comments for you, but this is kind of just like a way for you to start thinking of your character as a person, and then you can give them those villainish traits that make them feel less deserving of the title human. Alrighty, so we are going to wrap things up here, but before I let you go, I did want to say this. Villains aren't just obstacles, they are forces. They define your story just as much as your main character does. So don't just write someone who fights your hero, write someone who changes them. As I always say, and as I do to close, stay creative, stay safe, and have a blessed rest of your day, my friends. I'll see you in the next one.